I'd like to introduce our speakers now, Rubyanna and John Kaiser from the Bruderhof. Bruderhof is an intentional Christian community of more than 3,000 people living in 29 settlements on 5 continents. They are a fellowship of families and singles practicing radical disciplines in the spirit of the first church in Jerusalem. They gladly renounce private property and share everything in common. Their vocation is a life of service to God, each other, and you. Welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for welcoming us. First to introduce my husband and myself. This is my husband, John, and our youngest daughter, Shayna. She's 17, and she's the only one of our children still living at home with us. John and I have been married for 32 years. We have 7 children. The oldest 3 are married. We have some in college, and then our youngest one still at home. So the reading that Jim gave, I want to underline the first 2 lines of that, because that's at the core of what we are doing. We know that our few communities will not change the world, but Christ will, and we want to give ourselves voluntarily to him. That's at the center of what we are. This is not in judgment of the rest of the world. It's what we have decided to give our lives to. And that means 100% for life. So our communities began in Germany in 1920. My great-grandfather, Everhard Arnold, and his wife, Emmy. After the First World War, there were many people looking for something new and something concrete to give their lives to. Everhard and Emmy came out of an affluent background, and with Emmy's sister, Elsa, they decided to leave all that and go to a small village in Germany, in Zannertz, and band together with other like-minded people to combine their earthly goods and support each other and try to begin a new way of living together. They also supported unwed mothers, people with disabilities, people that couldn't find a place in society, tramps of the road. What happened next was that World War II came, and our community in Germany at the time was not tolerated by the Nazis. Everhard Arnold spoke up against what Hitler was doing, and as a result, the Nazis raided the community, and within 48 hours, they all had to pull up roots and leave. Leave the country. Very abrupt. This is with families, with young children. And the place that took them, the place they went, they had been looking, they had known this was coming, so had sent emissaries to England, where they'd found land and a place to live, and that's where they started up again. And so this is in the middle of World War II, where Germans coming into England, they were also suspect from their English neighbors because of being German. But it was a very vibrant time for our community, and many English people joined during that time. They were in England only 4 years, and at that point were told by the Home Office that they could not, that the German members would have to be interned if they stayed in the country. So again, they had to make a choice. Are we going to stay together, or are we going to allow ourselves to be split up? And they chose to stay together. And again, they had to pull up roots and move across. This time it was across the ocean to Paraguay in South America, which was the only country at that time willing to take them in, refugees from World War II. And part of the reason for that was that there were Mennonites, European Mennonites living in Paraguay that helped them get situated there. But it was a very tough beginning there. There was a lot of disease. The mothers with young children, babies born, as they were trying to establish themselves there. Some young children died, tropical diseases. It was tough, but they persevered and built up a communal life in South America, and that's where my mother was born. And John's father also grew up there. I had 20 years in South America, and in the early or the late 1940s started sending people up to North America to see what the lay of the land was up there, and met with a lot of interest from people like my other grandparents who are American, the Moody's.
Actually, the emissaries were sent up to get funds.
Yeah, originally to gain support because it was a very hard lifestyle in Paraguay.
But yeah, through those visits, they then met with a lot of common interests.
Quakers in Philadelphia, young men who had protested the Second World War and had been conscientious objectors, all kinds of people who again were dissatisfied. And there were other intentional communities at the time, and many of those people asked for the Bruderhof to move to North America. So in 1954, a new community was started in Riften, New York, called Woodcrest, and that was the first North American community. So over the next few years, most of the people from South America moved up, and eventually Paraguay closed. But that's how we came to be in the United States. And so since then, and especially in the early years, many Americans joined our community. So we have this multicultural background. We have grandparents from Germany and from America, and there's many English members too. And you can see it in our music. We have songs from, two of the songs that we presented for the first one and the last one, which we haven't heard yet, are from Jewish people. We have Jewish people among us who have become Christian. We have Koreans, we have people from South America. And so as the community traveled through different countries, we've collected a lot of cultural diversity. So, and that's a good thing. So one of the main things that we hold to is community of goods. That means that we share everything. We have common businesses here at Belleville, which by the way is in Chester. And if any of you want to come by, you're very welcome. We have a shop that makes community playthings, which is furniture and playthings mainly for daycares and schools. We also have a business that makes equipment for disabled people, and then other smaller ventures. But we work together, and each person contributes what they can as far as, your abilities and strengths. And then we get what we need in return, and there is no exchange of money among us. So I, for example, work in the accounting department. My husband works in the business, and that's how it goes. So I wanted to talk a little bit about family, because it's such an important part of who we are. We have singles, and our singles, unmarried people after the age of high school are take part in families, are invited into other families. For example, we have John's older brother with us, who's partially disabled, and he's just part of our family. He's never married. And so but he has a home with us, and there's many others that do the same. But we believe in marriage for life, one man and one woman. And that's an important building block and stability for the children. We welcome children into our families. As I said, we have 7, and it's been a joy and a challenge. And also we try to protect childhood and the childlike spirit, in the sense that we hope to keep our children as simple and childlike as possible for as long as possible with regards to technology, the media, entertainment. And of course, that is all there, but we make an effort to keep them close to the Spirit of Jesus. And the second song that was played was about Eliza. Now, I saw Eliza this morning. She's doing very well. But she was born into our Belleville community earlier this year and spent her first months in hospital. And it was touch and go for a while. And it's taken all those months, many months, for her to come along to the point where this morning she wasn't even on oxygen. So, and I think that's one of the advantages we have, is that because we can support each other, and the parents, the young parents, it's their first child, have all the support that they need. Dan works with me in my accounting office, but he was given as much time off as he needed to support his wife, Sadie. And she's a school teacher here, but this year she's not teaching. It's just something we are able to do for each other because we live together. Over all those months in hospital, the grandparents came several times from a distance.
And the communities support each other too. So,
Right.
like a teacher from a different community was sent over to
To
take
fill-
Sadie's place in
Yeah.
the school.
So we educate our own children up through the 12th grade. We have our own elementary schools at each location, and then we have a single high school academy in Esopus, New York, which serves all the high school age students in this country, including a boarding dorms for the ones that come from a distance. We're proud to announce that our youngest daughter, Shayna, is going to be taking part in an student exchange, and going to England to the Beech Grove Academy in the next few weeks for the rest of her senior year. And we get to take her over. So we do that kind of thing too. We keep the communities, stay in touch and stay fluid with people traveling between them and even moving as needed. So, when she goes over there, her cousin is there already having her junior year, and she'll be with people she knows partly. But it's a great way to stay connected. And so as life progresses through school and on into after school, after high school, our young people are given the choice whether to stay with our communities or not. Some decide to stay and become members, and others find other things to do or have other callings. That's a personal choice. It's not something that we force on them or expect that they will all join.
It's also not something they inherit.
Yeah.
Has to be a personal choice.
Yeah.
After the age of 21, they have to make their own choice, and this choice is brought to them as a very important choice. It's not made lightly,
Right.
because it is a lifetime commitment. The vows you take when you become a member is for life.
Yeah. So many of them go on to college, and that's a good time to test the waters and see where you belong. And then the other thing that we are lucky with is that to have so much support, as with Eliza, to care for our own sick people, disabled people, and elderly. And that's done as much as possible at home. And people are willing to, put aside their own wishes many times and just pitch in and do what's needed. And that's a big part of community. It has its joys and many, many blessings. We have a lot of fun times and happy times together, but there are other times when you just need to do what's needed. But that makes it work. And even when you end up doing something that you didn't choose to do, you very many times you find out that it's a joy, and it's a lot more rewarding than you thought it would be. We also try to keep our standard of living fairly simple, so that whatever extra resources we have can be used to help others. We're not trying to stay here in an isolated bubble. We try to be interactive with the neighborhood, with other organizations, with other community efforts. We love having people come visit us, and many times we go out and meet others. So again, if any of you are interested in coming, give us a call.
We also participate in different world organizations by sending volunteers from our community. For example, Save the Children or Habitat for Humanity, and in that way contribute to the needs in the world.
We also run a program out of our own, it was here in Belleville, Breaking the Cycle of Violence, in which members of our community, along with other speakers, speak in schools to help young people come to terms with gang violence or any other type of discord and violence in their lives. And it's a very powerful tool that helps young people find positive solutions. And that's usually through school assemblies.
And obviously the whole COVID scene put the brakes on that program last year. But this year they're already starting it up again. They've done a few assemblies. They have done a few via Zoom like today. But it used to be, prior to COVID, it used to be a very busy program. Two visits, 2 schools at a minimum per week, with speakers speaking, and primarily in the New York City area, but also
Around here.
upstate here.
Yeah. So we've mentioned a few of the sort of external things we do, reaching out, trying to connect with others. But the biggest thing that I think is a way that we imagine ourselves healing the world is just by being what we are. And as that first reading said, it's not that we are anything special, but God can do it. And it can be challenging. We're not perfect people. We all have our failings and we hurt each other. We often have to say sorry and start again, but that's the only way forward, is to see where, if we mess up, what that was, and then pick up and start again. And if you're just as in a marriage, what holds us is our commitment to each other. So if you're committed to each other, there isn't an out. If I'm committed to John, if we have differences, we don't say, forget it. We work it out, as tough as it may be. And among ourselves too, we work it out. And I think is one way to heal the world and to bring hope.
I think an important word that is integral to all working out all these problems is forgiveness. And forgiveness is the only way that you can work things out, especially in a community, but in a bigger, broader sense in the world too. And I think, our community in a way deals with the same problems which are there in the world, which lead to all the tragedies. I mean, if you think of COVID, how it attacked our communal way of life, we couldn't, because of social distancing, we couldn't come together like we would wish we could. And like today, we're doing Zoom, and how much nicer it would be if we could be in a building together and see each other and shake each other's hand. And in a similar way in the world, a lot of the problems that are occurring are, they're all just amplifications of what's actually, what I feel is what's occurring in each of us as people. And each of us as people, we have these different forces at work. And the basis of living together in community for us is the understanding that Christ gives us a solution, that the Spirit is given to us, and only through this Spirit are we able to overcome all our differences. And we feel that that is what ultimately will overcome all the problems and needs and suffering in the world today. But it has to start with each of us. When we come to that point, for example, if one of our young people decides to join this way of life, they have come to that point that they are going to allow the Spirit to rule all their decision making. And when we live together in a marriage, obviously we're still people, and obviously we fail. The Spirit isn't something that's given and then it's there. It disappears if we don't accept it. And so we fail many times, and we have to continually work back to that first love. And in the same way in our community, it's a work in progress every day to continually solve our problems, solve our differences.
You could end up being neighbors with somebody you don't like. It's happened to me. And it can be tough. That person's in your face, that person's trying to raise your kids, and you're actually trying to raise your own kids without them. And you have to, first of all, speak directly to that person. Hey, I don't appreciate, you chipping in here. But then also forgive and move on. And you realize that once, and also for me, I had to realize everyone is so different, and I have to accept them as they are, as well as expecting them to accept me. So we're not trying to all be the same. We're not trying to, there's plenty of room for individual expression. But we do need to give each other space and give each other the benefit of the doubt and forgive and move on.
Yeah. And we all have our corners, our sharp corners, our things that bother other people, irritate other people. And one of the sayings from Eberhard, the original founder in 1920, was that we should have joy in one another, and we dare not talk about other people in a negative way behind their back. And so that's a very important building block for community, is that we promise to speak directly or keep our mouths shut
We say
until
we
we
have,
are able to voice it.
we say we have only one law, and that is love. And love means joy in others. And that means, as John said, addressing problems directly.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's just,
So if anyone has comments or questions, that's probably the next thing.
Rubyanna,